President Goodluck Jonathan gave a quite an interesting interview or press conference, if you like, where he talked about the events in Guinea-Bissau. We know that uh, over the past couple of days, there was the announcement of a military coup in Guinea-Bissau, you know, and that will not be something surprising because we've been witnessing a number of coups in the African continent, Central Africa, West Africa. There's been a number of coups. And then Guinea-Bissau itself has a history of military coup. And as such, there have been several instances of military coup in Guinea-Bissau since it gained independence from Portugal in 1974. And so it wasn't surprising that there would be a coup, and the coup immediately generated a lot of condemnation. You have the ECOWAS. Guinea-Bissau is part of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. ECOWAS condemned the military coup. The African Union condemned the military coup. The United Nations, via its Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, also condemned the military coup in Guinea-Bissau. And then there was this issue of Jonathan. Jonathan is a member, founder, I think the leader of the West Africa Elders Forum, which is a non-governmental, non-partisan organization that helps in monitoring. Is an organization of former leaders from the West African region, and they help to monitor elections in the region. So they were in Guinea-Bissau to monitor the elections in Guinea-Bissau. And when this coup took place, they were still in Guinea-Bissau. So you had a situation whereby Goodluck Jonathan appeared to have been trapped in Guinea-Bissau. And so there were a lot of worry, and the Nigerians were calling on the federal government to do something to bring back Goodluck Jonathan. And then we saw Goodluck Jonathan arriving from Guinea-Bissau. So a day after Goodluck Jonathan arrived, he now spoke to members of the press, and he said a couple of things. One of which is he doesn't believe that there was a coup in Guinea-Bissau. He said whatever took place that they are calling a coup was a ceremonial coup, was a ceremonial event, as if it was a stage-managed event. Why did he say so? He said for a couple of reasons. One of which was that the person that announced the coup is the president himself. Embalo was the one that announced it was a coup in Guinea-Bissau. And he now announced that he has been arrested. So that it was strange for the president because the coup is said to have removed the president. So he has been ousted. And when you are ousted as the head of state, as the leader of the state, you are usually kept incommunicado, where you will not have access to your phones, have access to the media. So it was surprising that Embalo was the one that announced it. Usually it's the military men who carry out the coup that usually announces we've carried out the coup and this are what are going to happen. But in this instance, Embalo, the civilian democratic elected leader of Guinea-Bissau, was the one that announced that there was a coup. It was after he had made an announcement that a military man came and said, there's a coup, we have taken over the country and stuff like that. So that, he said, is unusual. Then another thing that makes him suspect that this was not really a real coup was the fact that Embalo was the one that announced to the world that there is a coup, that's the president who was deposed. Embalo still has his phone, and he was contacting media around the world to say, I've been arrested, there's a coup in my country, and I've been arrested. And Jonathan said he's not a young man, he's close to 70, and that it's and he has lived through military coup in Nigeria and other African countries, so he knows how coup are done. And so that it is strange that a president will be removed, will be ousted, and he will still be in possession of his phone and then contact media houses. So that makes him suspect that it was not really a real coup that took place. Then another point that Goodluck Jonathan said was that the elections were peaceful. Elections were held in Guinea-Bissau, that the West African Elders Forum, which is a part of, was looking at events in the capital in Bissau, the capital of Guinea-Bissau, and then there was a meeting of election. There were election monitoring groups from ECOWAS, from EU, from AU, African Union, and other election monitoring groups. That these election monitoring groups, they had a meeting after the election where they said the election was largely peaceful. There was no major issue in the election. So the election held, it was peaceful. Security agencies conducted themselves properly, and we are now collecting the results. They have collated that they have 9 regions in Guinea-Bissau. They have collated results in those 9 regions. And the results from the 9 regions were now taken to the capital Bissau for final compilation. Then after the compilation, then there will be announcement of the results to see what percentage each person got and stuff like that. So it was at that point when there was final collation was going on before the announcement. That's when this alleged coup took place. So he's saying that the elections were peaceful, that there's no reason, the military does not have any reason to carry out a coup, that would have only been the case if the elections had, if there were problems in the elections, right? And say, okay, there were problems and people were protesting and stuff like that. So there was nothing like that. The election went peacefully, and that it now becomes surprising that just as the results were being tallied and just the announcement was to come soon, maybe a day or so, before the results were to be announced, the military now came and said there was a coup. And so that itself makes it quite surprising. And so he is surprised and he is pained by it. Goodluck Jonathan said that if he even felt more pained with the way events had turned out in Guinea-Bissau than when he lost election as president and had to call Buhari to congratulate Buhari for the election, so that he really felt pained that he has been having when he was president. Remember, Goodluck Jonathan was former president of Nigeria. He came in 2007. He was vice president to Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. Then around 2010, around 2009, 2010, Yar'Adua died. Then Jonathan became acting president. At first, before Yar'Adua died, he was acting president. And then when Yar'Adua died, became the full term president. And then he won election and all that. So he did the last few years of Yar'Adua, then the full 4 years before he lost in 2015. And so he said when he was president that there were issues in Guinea-Bissau, that he had to go to Guinea-Bissau. He was the chairman of the ECOWAS heads of state and had to go to Guinea-Bissau in around 2013. They had to sort out the issues, and there was election the following year, 2014, and all that. So he has been involved with the issue in Guinea-Bissau. And so that even when he went to Guinea-Bissau now, they were telling him they remember what he did to help Guinea-Bissau when he was president of Nigeria and when he was head of ECOWAS, And so that is invested in what's the in seeing that things go well in Guinea-Bissau. That since the last time he went to Guinea-Bissau and now that he returned for the elections, notice there has been significant improvement in the capital and that things seem to be improving in Guinea-Bissau. So it feels very bad that this so-called coup happened. And so Jonathan said, former President Goodluck Jonathan said that it was not a coup. He doesn't believe there's a coup. That if anything, it's a ceremonial a coup, and he really felt pain by it. And he now insisted, former President Goodluck Jonathan insisted that the ECOWAS and African Union should insist on the release of the results. That the results were there, and that monitoring groups have the results, and as such, ECOWAS and AU should insist on releasing those results. That he doesn't support military going in, he doesn't support that, but that he should insist on releasing the results, and that it's very important that the results is released. It's very important that they put pressure on the government, on the military people and the government to see that the results are released. And then he also gave an instance that when he was president, that Cote d'Ivoire had like a similar problem. Then Gbagbo was the leader of Cote d'Ivoire. They had an election where Gbagbo had like 40-something%, Ouattara had like 30-something%. And the Cote d'Ivoire constitution says that before you can't win an election without having a simple majority. You have to have a simple majority of more than 50% before you can be declared as winner. So since nobody had a simple majority, the top two people, which is Gbagbo and Ouattara, had to go for a second round. So when they went for a second round, before that second round, the other candidates that were in the race, they stepped down for Ouattara and supported Ouattara. So Ouattara had more support for the second round. And when they did the second round, Ouattara now defeated Gbagbo. But Gbagbo was like insisting he was not going to leave. That how can somebody who had 30-something% in the first round now come to defeat him in the second round? And that at that time, Jonathan was president of Nigeria, leader of ECOWAS, that he had to insist. They told Gbagbo that, yes, you are one of our colleagues, but you have to follow the outcome of the results. And that's how Ouattara was sworn in as a president. So that's seen situations that even when you don't like the outcome of the result, you have to honor it. Just like the example he set as president of Nigeria in 2015 when he lost to Muhammadu Buhari, and he had to congratulate Buhari and leave office. So Goodluck Jonathan was making the point in the interview yesterday that it does appear that this was kind of an arrangee coup in Guinea-Bissau, and that this will really be something really unfortunate, and that the bodies, ECOWAS and AU, should insist that the results are released. Then there's another evidence to the point that this may have been an arrangee coup, because there's a journalist, Kennedy Wandara. Kennedy Wandara on X is an international journalist. He said that the overthrown Guinea-Bissau president Umaru Sissoco Embalo fled to neighboring Senegal, but his allies and close associates now run the new government. He mentioned Elidio Vieira Tay, the new prime minister, was the director of Embalo's presidential campaign, and also served as finance minister before the coup. He serves as the Minister of Finance. Okay, he serves as the Minister of Finance as well. So the new Prime Minister that has been appointed is Embalo's man. He was the head of Embalo's presidential campaign, and he was finance minister. Then he now mentioned Dennis Sharma, who announced on Wednesday that army officers were taking over, was a military aide to Embalo. He's now the spokesperson for the military government. So the the spokesperson for the new military government now is a military aide to Embalo. Then the new head, both General Uta Intai, the new transitional president, and Thomas Jassy, who was named on Thursday as Armed Forces Chief of Staff, are also close to Embalo. The Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko terms the coup as a scheme. It's not right. Then Fernando Diaz, the main opposition candidate who has been arrested by the military junta, that this Fernando Diaz still maintains that President Embalo fabricated a coup d'etat to cover the election loss. Said, once again, we have been the target of false coup d'etat. We will liberate ourselves, Diaz, little known 47-year-old, says. ECOWAS has suspended Guinea-Bissau from the regional bloc until constitutional order is restored. So we see all of this. The fact that it's Embalo's camp that announced there was a coup. Embalo was treated gingerly by the so-called coup plotters. He had his phone that he was making contact with. Now he has left. Embalo has left Guinea-Bissau. He's now in Senegal also. The people that are now leading this new military government in Guinea-Bissau are all Embalo's guys. People that have been working with Embalo, his campaign advisor, his security aide, and all of that. His allies are the ones running Guinea-Bissau. So which buttress what President Goodluck Jonathan said, that this seemed to be kind of an arrangee coup in Guinea-Bissau. And I think it's really quite unfortunate, considering the challenges. Guinea-Bissau is said to be one of the poorest countries in the world. It has a population of like 2 million people. It's, in terms of population, a small country, but it's one of the poorest in the world, and they've been bedeviled with this issue of drugs. Drugs are being transported from the Americas to Guinea-Bissau, then from there onward to Europe and to other parts of Africa. So it's a drug hub. It serves as a route through which drugs are transported from the Americas to Europe and other parts of Africa. And yet there's a lot of poverty in the land, with all the challenges that Guinea-Bissau is facing. Embalo said that he wasn't, as we read, he wasn't going to contest again. In 2024, he said he wasn't going to run again. Then earlier this year, he now changed his mind that he was going to run. And now you've run, the election has held, and you don't want to accept the election result. And you quickly arrange a coup, in order for you not to accept that your party has lost the election, which is really unfortunate. As Goodluck Jonathan said, that people has invested a lot. The holiday was declared. People didn't go to work. People went to vote, and I think I saw somewhere that it was like about 65% those who came out to vote, 65% of the voters, which is a high number, So even after all that, ECOWAS, EU, even the money that the country has spent in conducting the elections, in getting those materials, in getting logistics and all, they spent a lot. They invested a lot in this election. So for all of that to now come to naught, in a so-called military coup, something that is quite unfortunate. And I just hope that the bodies which have been repeatedly mentioned, ECOWAS and all that, will take this seriously, and see what they can do to restore democratic order in Guinea-Bissau, and see that the results are announced, and whoever won the election should be made to run the state of affairs in Guinea-Bissau. They have so many problems in Guinea-Bissau which they have to deal with. So they don't need this arrangee coup that seemed to have been planned by President Embalo.